You're watching TV India Live, India's Voice to the World. I'm Vipakshi Khurana, coming up in the next 30 minutes. Israel and Hamas trade blame over violations of ceasefire deal. Hamas says committed to hand over all bodies of the hostages, but some may be buried under the debris. Trump threatens action if killings continue in Gaza. Trump talks to Putin ahead of meet with Zelensky, touting progress in Russia-Ukraine peace talks to meet Putin in Hungary in the next 2 weeks. U.S. Chamber of Commerce sues Trump administration over $100,000 H-1B visa fee, terms it unlawful as it overrides provisions of the Immigration and Nationality Act. Madagascar coup leader Michael Randrianirina sworn in as president as African Union suspends the island nation. UN condemns and urges return to constitutional order. Prime Minister Modi to meet visiting leaders from Sri Lanka and Egypt, deliberations to focus on strengthening bilateral ties and investments. And on to the details now. Israel said on Thursday it was preparing for the reopening of Gaza's Rafah crossing with Egypt to let Palestinians in and out, but set no date as it traded blame with Hamas over violations of a US-mediated ceasefire. Now, dispute over the return of hostages' bodies held by Hamas threatens to derail the truce and other unresolved elements of the plan, including disarmament of militants and Gaza's future governance. Israeli government spokesperson Shos Bedrosian told reporters Israel remained committed to the agreement and continued to uphold its obligations, demanding Hamas return the bodies of the 19 deceased hostages it had not handed over. Well, Hamas has handed over 10 bodies, but Israel said one was not that of a hostage. Hamas said it remained committed to the Gaza agreement and to handing over all the remaining bodies of hostages, but that returning the remains may take time as some were buried in the tunnels. On Thursday, a senior Hamas official accused Israel of flouting the ceasefire by killing at least 24 people in shootings since Friday and said a list of such violations was handed over to the mediators. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump on Thursday warned that further U.S.-backed intervention could be necessary if Hamas fails to uphold its ceasefire commitments in Gaza. Trump added that additional bodies of hostages held by Hamas were returned to Israel. And also, U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin agreed on Thursday to hold another summit on the Ukraine conflict. Now, Trump said he would meet Russian President Putin in Hungary after a telephonic conversation with Putin on Thursday. Talking to media in Oval Office, the U.S. president said the call, the first with Putin since mid-August, was very productive, adding the teams from Washington and Moscow will meet next week. The Kremlin confirmed plans for the meeting, though neither side provided a date for when it would occur.
I would say within 2 weeks or so, pretty quick. Marco Rubio is going to be meeting with his counterpart, as you know, Lavrov, and they'll be meeting pretty soon. They're going to set up a time and a place very shortly. Maybe it's already set up. They've already spoken. And I thought it was a very good phone call. I thought very productive. But I'll be meeting with President Putin, and we'll make a determination. Tomorrow I'm meeting with President Zelensky and I'll be telling them about the call.
Well, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán posted on X saying the meeting was great news for the peace-loving people of the world, adding, "We are ready." In another post, Orbán stated that he had spoken to President Trump and preparations for the summit were underway. Also, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky hopes the momentum of the West Asia peace deal will help end the Ukraine conflict as he arrived in the United States on Thursday. While Zelensky will meet U.S. President Trump on Friday, his third meeting since January, the subject of Tomahawk missiles is likely to be high on the agenda. The leaders exchanged phone calls last week discussing the possibility of the United States approving Tomahawk missiles for Ukraine to ramp up pressure on Russia. Now, Trump and Zelensky last met at the White House in August, shortly after the American president met with Russian leader Vladimir Putin in Alaska. And the U.S. Chamber of Commerce has filed a legal challenge to the administration's $100,000 fee on H-1B visa petitions. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce is, in an official release on Thursday, argued that the new fee is unlawful and threatens the country's access to global talent. Now, the statement reads, the new $100,000 visa fee will make it cost prohibitive for U.S. employers, especially startups and small and mid-sized businesses, to utilize the H-1B program, which was created by Congress expressly to ensure that American businesses of all sizes can access the global talent they need to grow their operations in the U.S. Now, it further stated that President Trump has embarked on an ambitious agenda of securing permanent pro-growth tax reforms, unleashing American energy, and unraveling the overregulation that has stifled growth. The Chamber has actively backed these proposals to attract more investment in America. To support this growth, our economy will require more workers, not fewer. And a U.S. appeals court has struck down President Donald Trump's bid to send National Guard troops into Chicago. The administration claimed the deployment was vital to curb crime and protect federal agents amid rising unrest. But Illinois and Chicago fought back, arguing there was no rebellion to justify troops on the city streets. Also on Thursday, a three-judge panel agreed, ruling the White House failed to show sufficient danger to national authority. Also, the court declared that protest, even if loud or unruly, do not equal insurrection. The decision keeps federal troops out of Illinois and echoes similar challenges from Oregon and California, where states are pushing back against the Trump administration's extraordinary domestic military actions. And Madagascar's new military ruler, Colonel Michael Radrianirina, will be sworn in as president on Friday. The High Constitutional Court will perform the swearing-in ceremony of the new president. Colonel Radrianirina said earlier that the military had taken power and dissolved all institutions except the lower house of Parliament or National Assembly. He also said that a committee led by the military would rule for up to 2 years alongside a transitional government before organizing new elections. Radrianirina also said he was open to talks with the African Union after it suspended the country's membership following the military coup. And United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres on Thursday condemned the unconstitutional change of government in Madagascar and called for the return to constitutional order and the rule of law.
The Secretary-General condemns the unconstitutional change of government power in Madagascar and calls for the return to constitutional order and the rule of law. He takes note of the decision taken by the Peace and Security Committee of the African Union to immediately suspend the country from participation in all activities of the African Union, its organs and institutions, until constitutional order is restored in the country. The Secretary-General encourages all Malagasy stakeholders, including the youth, to work together to address the underlying causes of instability in Madagascar. He reiterates the availability of the United Nations to support these national efforts towards the attainment of that goal in collaboration with the African Union and the Southern African Development Community and other international partners.
Well, Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez on Thursday denied a report that she had negotiated with the United States to oust President Nicolas Maduro. Now, the United States charges Maduro, who's accused of stealing elections last year, of heading a drug cartel. President Donald Trump has deployed warships to the Caribbean as part of what he has described as an anti-drug trafficking operation. Also, the U.S. forces have blown up at least 5 suspected drug boats in the Caribbean since early September, leaving 27 people dead. In a significant escalation, Trump indicated on Wednesday he had authorized covert CIA operations against Venezuela and were considering attacks on land against alleged drug cartels in the country. And Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro accused the Trump administration of attempting to facilitate a coup to overthrow him and warned the CIA against operating in Venezuela. His comments came after U.S. President Donald Trump confirmed that he had authorized CIA operations in Venezuela. Maduro compared Trump's actions in Venezuela's failed regime change conflicts in Afghanistan and Iraq and the CIA's attempted coups against previous administrations in Chile and Argentina. While the Trump administration has recently moved additional U.S. military assets into the region, has issued threats against the Maduro regime and has undertaken at least 5 military strikes against civilian targets in international waters. And at least 1 person was killed and dozens of police officers injured in widespread protest overnight in Peru against President José, who assumed power just days ago. Now, the protest, called by young Gen Z protesters, transport workers and civil groups, was the latest in a series of demonstrations against corruption and rising crime, which led to the dramatic midnight ouster of former President Dina Boluart last Thursday. Well, thousands of protesters amassed around the country, with hundreds clashing with police outside Congress in Lima. Police fired tear gas while some protesters hurled fireworks, rocks and burning objects. President Jerry expressed a regret over the death of the 1 person. He blamed violence on delinquents who infiltrated a peaceful demonstration to sow chaos. And Kenyan Deputy President Kithure Kindiki on Thursday announced plans for a state funeral service for the late Prime Minister Raila Odinga, set to take place at Nyayo Stadium on Friday at 9 a.m. local time. Well, the event will feature military honours, a sermon from the Anglican Church of Kenya, eulogies and speeches by Kenyan leaders and foreign dignitaries, followed by a public viewing of Odinga's remains to accommodate the mourners. Odinga, a major figure in Kenyan politics who served as Prime Minister and ran unsuccessfully for President 5 times, died on Wednesday aged 80 while undergoing medical treatment in India.
There will be a public viewing of the remains of the late Prime Minister Raila Odinga after that state event. And therefore, those who want to continue mourning our departed leader have no cause to worry.
Well, 4 people were killed in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, on Thursday when security forces opened a fire and released tear gas to disperse massive crowds mourning opposition leader Raila Odinga. Well, chaos erupted after thousands of supporters stormed the gates of the city's main stadium, where Odinga's body lay in state. Gunfire echoed and tear gas turned scenes of mourning into panic. Earlier, crowds had overwhelmed Nairobi's international airport, halting operations for 2 hours as President William Ruto and officials received Odinga's body with military honours. The unrest spread to Parliament grounds, where public viewing had first been planned. Once Prime Minister and a lifelong champion of democracy, Odinga inspired generations, his death now sparking grief, chaos and calls for calm across Kenya. Well, the Mexican Navy deployed multiple helicopters and ground crews to deliver supplies and clear debris in the flood-ravaged areas, where the death toll has reached 70, with 72 people still missing. In eastern Mexico, Poza Rica, one of the areas hardest hit by flooding, naval officers unloaded boxes of supplies from trucks and worked to remove debris from mud-choked streets. But survivors say the help isn't reaching everyone quickly enough. Due to the mishap, thousands of houses have been damaged or destroyed as fast-running water careered down streets, carrying cars, while highways were blocked with debris and electricity cut off. An old town, the capital of Czech Republic, Prague, is shining bright as the 13th Signal Festival of Light kicks off. The city's famous buildings come alive with colorful lights and moving images. 17 displays created by artists from countries like the US, Taiwan, Germany, Italy and Spain turned the streets into a glowing art show. Held every October, the festival is one of Czech Republic's biggest cultural events, drawing huge crowds to enjoy the mix of history and modern digital art. And still to come in this edition of DD India Live. India and Central Asian nations pledge stronger regional security cooperation at third NSA meeting in Kyrgyzstan. The countdown to Diwali begins. Homes, hearts and markets glow with festive spirit. And India's top badminton player Lakshya Sen stuns world number 2 Anders Antonsen at the Denmark Open badminton tournament.
There's so many invaluable artifacts that the British have taken from our country. They robbed us of our self-respect. They robbed us of our honor. Loot was never innocent. It was painful.
The word loot, that was stolen from India too.
And moving on, India and Central Asian nations reiterated their commitment to deepening regional security cooperation at the third meeting of the Secretaries of Security Council National Security Advisors in Kyrgyzstan. National Security Advisor Ajit Doval represented India at the meeting, joined by his counterparts from Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan and Uzbekistan, while Tajikistan was represented by the Deputy Secretary of its Security Council. The NSAs reiterated the importance of regular dialogue in view of the changing nature of security challenges. They discussed ways to enhance cooperation in areas of countering terrorism, radicalization, extremism and narcotic trafficking. The leaders emphasized the significance of security and stability in Afghanistan for the region. They agreed to work closely with Afghanistan in addressing security challenges as well as in the areas of connectivity and economic development, which could form the basis of long-term stability. Also, the third meeting of the Secretaries of the Security Council, National Security Advisors, was held on the basis of the consensus reached at the first India-Central Asia Summit on 27th January 2022 to hold regular meetings at the level of Secretaries of the Security Council, National Security Advisors. The first meeting in this format was held on the 6th of December 2022 in New Delhi, India, and the second meeting was held on 23rd of October 2023 in Astana, Kazakhstan. The third meeting was also held in the backdrop of a successful 4th India-Central Asia Foreign Ministers meeting in New Delhi on the 6th of June 2025. And moving on, Sri Lankan Prime Minister Harini Amarasurya, who is on a 3-day visit to India, scheduled to meet Prime Minister Narendra Modi in New Delhi today. Early on Thursday, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Shankar met visiting Sri Lankan Prime Minister Harini Amarasurya in the national capital. The leaders discussed India's continued support to Sri Lanka and strengthening our cooperation in education and capacity building. Well, during her 3-day visit to India, Amarasurya also visited Alma Mater Hindu College, where she received a standing ovation from students and faculty. She recalled her college days, saying entering through the same gates after 3 decades felt nostalgic and admiration. The college has transformed into a vibrant institution with smart classrooms, advanced labs and thriving research initiatives, keeping pace with India's rapid growth. Her visit is focused on strengthening bilateral ties between India and Sri Lanka and enhancing collaboration in education and capacity building. And Egyptian Foreign Minister Dr. Badr Abdelatty to meet Prime Minister Narendra Modi in New Delhi today. Early on Thursday, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Shankar held talks with Egyptian Foreign Minister Dr. Badr Abdelatty. Both the leaders met for the first India-Egypt strategic dialogue in New Delhi. Delivering the opening remarks at this important dialogue, Minister Dr. Shankar termed this meeting as a milestone in India-Egypt ties, and since the elevation of our relationship to a level of a strategic partnership in 2023, cooperation in various domains has intensified.
Our meeting for the first India-Egypt strategic dialogue is a milestone in our ties, and since the elevation of our relationship to a level of a strategic partnership in 2023, we can see that cooperation in various domains have intensified. Our deliberations today provide an opportunity to take stock and set direction to realize the visions of our leaders.
University rates mark a major transformation in various sectors. People have expressed joy and gratitude to Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. The CMD of STIC Travels, Subhash Goyal, praises the development, saying this will improve impact on hospitality sector.
This will definitely help us in the tourism industry. It will make India product a little cheaper. And we are quite confident that this step is going to boost the economy, and tourism industry is one industry which is the largest employment generator, and we can fulfill Prime Minister's vision of making India one of the best tourism destinations in the whole world.
And India's top badminton player Lakshya Sen stunned the world number 2 Anders Antonsen to reach the quarterfinals of the Denmark Open badminton tournament in Odense. World number 21 Sen upset local favourite Antonsen by 21-13, 21-14 score line. After conceding the first 2 points in the first game, Sen got on the scoreboard and never looked back as he dominated Antonsen to comfortably clinch the opener. Antonsen managed to keep pace with Sen at the start of the second game, but Sen seized control after the interval to bag the contest. This was Sen's third win in 8 matches against Antonsen. In the men's doubles, Satvik Sairaj, Rankareddy, Chirag Shetty also progressed to the semi-finals after a 21-19, 21-17 win over Chinese Taipei's Li Jiehui and Yang Po-Xuan. Satvik Chirag have extended their head-to-head record against the Chinese Taipei duo to 5-0. Meanwhile, Dhruv Kapila and Tanisha Crasto also advanced to the quarter-finals of the mixed doubles after receiving a walkover. And India is glowing as Diwali preparations begin across the country. Let's take a look. In Ayodhya, decoration work has begun at the Sri Ram Janmabhoomi temple ahead of Deepotsav. The temple is being lit with diyas and lights, symbolizing the victory of light over darkness as the city gears up for the grand celebration. A spectacular laser and light trial show at Ram Ki Paidi in Ayodhya wowed onlookers, creating excitement ahead of the Deepotsav celebrations on the 19th of October. Ayodhya is set to welcome a Ramayan-themed wax museum featuring lifelike models from Ram Lalla to Ravan. The museum showcases key Ramayan moments and will open to the public on the occasion of Deepotsav. In Rajasthan's Udaipur, Diwali celebrations have begun with grandeur as devotees performed Ganga Aarti and Mahakaleshwar Aarti on the occasion. The city glowed with lights and devotion, marking the start of the festive season. All right, that's all for this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world in the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.